Hello there, friends, and welcome back to Sesh Cast. My name is GLDLX. This is Sesh Cast, a cannabis podcast for cannabis sessions. And today I'm already really, really high, like way higher than I was planning on being. And I don't really know how it happened. Yeah, this is Sesh Cast, this podcast I do where I get high and I talk about stuff. If this is your first time, thanks for coming by. If this is not your first time, hey, thanks for coming back. Either way, thanks for hanging out with me. First things first, today, I gotta apologize, cause my stupid butt forgot to post on Instagram last week. I guess forgot is the wrong word. Honestly, I just didn't really get around to posting on Instagram last week for the new episode. So I'm gonna make that post today, being the day that I'm recording this, which is Monday, and then the day this episode comes out, which is Thursday, there will be another post on Instagram. So I'm at SeshCast on Instagram. If you want more, if you want to follow me and see all the pieces that I use for the show, I always post them there. Except for last week because I didn't get around to it. But I'm going to do it today, and it'll be up there by the time you hear this episode. So if you didn't know I was on Instagram, you didn't even know that post was missing. But yeah, I do stuff on there every once in a while. I would like to get back to live streaming on Instagram at some point. I just am not able to right now. But hopefully soon. Hopefully we're going to have a bit of a change of location coming soon. Fingers crossed at least. And that's going to make a lot of things significantly easier. So if that all comes together, you'll hear about it, and then you'll hear more from me on Instagram and on all the other places. But feel free to follow me on Instagram. I'm at SeshCast. And if you want to keep up with this podcast, you should be able to get it pretty much anywhere that podcasts are at this point. So, if you're listening to this podcast in a way that's less than convenient for you, feel free to find it somewhere else. I also post all the episodes on YouTube. So, yeah, there's that little spiel. So holy crap, it's episode 50. We got here somehow, which is wild and nuts. And I can't believe it. We are 50 episodes in on this thing, and I was thinking about it a lot today, and it was just really blowing my mind. I can barely believe it. It's been almost a full year of SeshCast, which I guess kind of is memorialized by the fact that I got this microphone for Christmas last year, and that was sort of the last piece that I needed to hop in on this podcasting thing. But I can't believe that it's made it this long, and that there are some people out there who still care after it's made it this long. So thanks for hanging out through 50 episodes. And if you're just getting here, that's fine too. I'm just happy that somebody is listening. So always feel free to go back and check out old episodes. I'm sure I'll do something special for the 1 year mark. I'm not really gonna do anything too special today, I don't think. It's episode 50, which is rad and a sweet milestone, but I'll do an update session on 55, and then probably something for the 1 year, and so that's all coming here in the next couple of months anyway, so I'm not going to bother doing too much with this one, other than just acknowledging the fact that we've made it for 50 episodes, and that's super duper rad. So feel free to, feel free was the wrong word, that wasn't really going anywhere, but thanks for hanging out for 50 episodes. That's that. I really appreciate it. Much love. Today, I am smoking on whatever I put in my grinder, because I don't have a bowl loaded yet. So I have, there, I think this is it. I have a bag of Ogre, that I had never heard of this strain before. I'd never tried this strain before, and saw it on the shelf and grabbed some, and I've been enjoying it. It's a decent sativa, honestly, and as someone who does not smoke a lot of sativa, it's a good sativa for me. It's not crazy racy or crazy heady or anything, which is part of the reason that I kind of avoid sativas. Sorry for all the bag crinkling. I guess I always wrap it to put it back in the jar. Somebody told me it stays more moisturized. I don't know. But the Ogre, it's a good sativa. It doesn't totally send me off into anxiety-ridden panic or anything like that. And it's uplifting in the sense of it gets me up out of the chair. So I'm not just sitting here doing nothing all day. Which does happen sometimes if I smoke too heavy an indica. Oh, I need to plug my laptop in. Um, yeah, it's a productive weed, which is great. I've been needing a productive weed for a while, and I've found one that I like. So this ogre gets the Goldilocks stamp of approval. I do approve. Um, so yeah, we're good. Okay, so today we are smoking out of a brand spanking new pipe that, like, man, Sean, you're a good dude. You really are. So I got my first Christmas present of the year, so to speak, a little holiday gift bag from my buddy Sean, who runs Jefferson Glass Company, which is out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. I didn't grow up in Pittsburgh, but the studio is in Pittsburgh, and I was home visiting my family. Oh gosh, it was a couple years ago now, I think. Um, and wanted to go into the like head shop from my hometown because when I was in high school I didn't smoke weed or anything like that, so I never went in. And I wanted to see what kind of glass they had, and I was like, "Do you guys have anything local? Like, is there anybody in this tiny little town that blows quality glass?" And they showed me this one piece that I have. It's like I think maybe still my most liked post. Well, not anymore. My most liked because a couple of the like collaboration posts have been pretty big. But of all my glass pictures, it might be my most liked picture um, of the big long spoon on the record player with Pink Floyd in the back. It's like episode 6. If you scroll way back in my feed, um, and I'll do like some sort of feature on all of the pieces I have from him at some point because he also made me the Sesh Cast piece. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So the guys at the local head shop showed me that pipe. I fell in love with it, got it, just really, really loved it, and found him on Instagram and was talking about his spoon a while ago, or like that one episode, and we got to talking, and he ended up making me like looking up at it, like you the listener can see it, but my little Sesh Cast spoon. It's a blown pipe with Sesh Cast in the front of it, and it's really cool. He made me that too. And then he sent me this new hammer spoon, just kind of like out of nowhere, which was so freaking cool, man. Like, thank you so much. Just thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, I had sent him some stickers just because I wanted him to have some, and he like responded with a pipe. But it's this cool new little hammer style. He said it's the style he's sort of working in on, and it's really awesome. Like the way that I can sort of describe this piece, uh, or if I say hammer spoon and that doesn't like click with you, what I mean is something that's shaped kind of like a corncob pipe. Like you've got this big sort of cylindrical head, and then the neck is much thinner and typically like a little more towards the bottom or the top of the bowl itself. It's not super like centered. So I've been seeing a lot of these hammer spoons on Sean's Instagram, which is at Jefferson Glassco 1. He actually has two Instagrams, and it's Jefferson Glassco and then Jefferson Glassco 1. And I'll tag him in the Instagram post. But he does these little super cute little glass turtles, Bert the Turt. He's got those on his like not weedy Instagram, which is just Jefferson Glassco. But he's got weedy, not necessarily weedy because he's in an illegal state, but like the tobacco pipes. And like the 18 plus Instagram is Jefferson Glassco 1. And I've been seeing a lot of these hammer spoons on there. And I really like them, and I was totally going to pick one up the next time I was in town. And then he sent me this cool one. So it's got sort of his like pastel colors, which I really like, and this clear like quarter twist double blown neck that's really pretty slick. A gigantic carb, as he always does. I can literally like the cardboard tubes that fit in raw cones, or like if you buy a 3-pack of a 6-pack of raw cones, you'll get 3 of these little cardboard stuffer tubes, and I can easily fit probably 2 of these in here. I think it's almost a 10 millimeter carb. It's gigantic. I have sort of a fun little idea I want to try with this piece that I might at some point for a weedtube.com video, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, It's also got this slick ram's horn on the other side, which he puts on a lot of his pieces, and it's this very like very beautiful, just like twisted glass horn, and it's got some cool little like striation effect inside of the glass. I don't know much about coloring glass, but it's super pretty, and I really like it. So, Sean, thank you so much, man. Like I can't say it enough. This is so cool of you, and I will absolutely put it on my Instagram. And I just everybody, if you like glass art, if you are into heady glass and collecting glass, or just like to follow different glass artists, he is one to follow. His art is amazing, and I love it. I love every single piece that he puts up. It's like I love it. So now that I've yapped about this for like a minute, I'm gonna go ahead and smoke it. Thanks for hanging out today. I hope that you can smoke along with me. Sorry I've rambled for the first like fourth of the episode, but that happens sometimes when you're high. So cheers, friends. I hope you're having a great day. And yeah, I'm gonna smoke this now. Okay, so the ram's horn on this piece makes it super comfortable to hold. It's got like a little textured bubble front too, but it's really comfortable to hold. Um, Not in any way like uncomfortable to use. So that's one last piece about the pipe. But um, this weed is great. I like this ogre a lot. It's um, like a very bright flavor. It's like the a little bit of a lemon, like sort of that pine solly taste, just a little bit. And it's a cool color too. So I like this strain a lot. Definitely my seal of approval. So anyway, to talk about like things that the actual episode, I had to legitimately peel myself away from my TV to record this episode. And so I decided that I would talk about the reason I've been glued to a couch for 3 days. And that is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Um, and more or less my Nintendo Switch, and I have it on my episode list that I keep, like just my gigantic random list of ideas, to talk about the Nintendo Switch one episode. And now that it's been out for like almost 2 years, I guess I'll finally talk about it. But uh, I am a huge Nintendo fanboy. I'm a gigantic video game nerd, and it's always been Nintendo for me. And I have every Nintendo console, like in the major American release line, and the Switch was everything that I've ever wanted and more, and I love it, and I've always wanted to just ramble about it for a little while. So, excuse me as I get high and write a brief love letter to my Nintendo Switch. This thing is great. It's awesome, and the reason that I wanted to talk about it is because a lot of these great things that it encompasses, a lot of the great parts about the Switch are these huge points that I think we're going to start to see become crucial in like a new wave of gaming. Like the on the go ability, the untethered feeling of a full AAA title, like the Nintendo Switch has done so many things right, and it's really Nintendo stepping back into the video game world. Like, and I'm sorry if you're not a video game person, that's totally cool. I understand it's not for everybody, but there's gonna be a video game nerdy episode. So if you're not into video games, you have been warned. So the Nintendo Switch is great, and have I said that enough times? Um, One of the well, obviously the big shtick of the console, so to speak, is that it is a fully portable console, and I say that very specifically because it's different than a handheld system. Like excuse me, the Nintendo Switch is not a handheld game system, or is not a handheld like Game Boy or PSP, um, DS, any of those. The Switch is a full on console. It's like picking up your PS4 and taking it with you. Now, obviously, the Nintendo Switch has a lot lower specs than its major competitors because of that, because it can be transported so easily, and it like the flawless switch between console mode and on the go mode. Like the Nintendo Switch has to have a smaller computer, smaller processor, all of those things. But the fact that Nintendo has revolutionized the way that we have like revolutionized and blurred the line between console and handheld, and it's just huge. Nintendo has always ruled the handheld game forever. There's never been another game company that has put out handhelds that have been even remotely as successful as Nintendo handheld line. So like that's everything from the original Game Boy Color, and then Nintendo DS, and now the 3DS, and so on and so forth. Like Nintendo has always ruled that market, and for a long time, Nintendo ruled the home console market, but the tide of gaming changed. I don't think anything about Nintendo ever changed, and I think that's a common misconception. Like a lot of people think that Nintendo got bad at making game consoles for a little while, and I don't think that that's true. I think that the reality is that Nintendo has always been a company that's wanted to make video games accessible and wanted to make video games that are for everybody. That's been Nintendo's thing since day one. I mean, it is the Disney Channel of video games, so to speak. That like while PlayStation 4 and Xbox One have focused so hard on these competitive and graphic and high learning curve and just like you know the type of games that don't get put on Nintendo, like they have focused so hard on that in Sony land and in Microsoft land that gaming has really shifted in those directions. And I don't think that I don't know how to put this. I've kind of rambled myself into a corner here, but like the type of games that people were playing changed. Whether you say that people's desires in games changed, or people were being fed more of one type of game, and so that's what they went with. You know, whatever. Take your pick. I'm not going to fight that fight with you, but like the type of games that people wanted to play changed, and they changed big time in like the mid to late 2000s when we started seeing Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Halo, the first FPS games that were less about the couch co-op and less about the single player and more about the larger scale, the online play, the like, and the one player as well. I mean, Halo has a campaign mode, but who plays Halo campaign mode? You know, the type of games straight away, and it got into the more hyper realistic games, the more real world like direction of video games, what with the shootings and the horrors and such, you know. But whatever, like the type of games that people wanted to play changed, and I think a lot of that had to do with what we were told meant immersion. And you know, immersion is obviously the number one thing that people try to create in games. That's what keeps you playing it. But the way that we defined immersion really changed, and what we wanted to feel immersed changed. And so it created this style of gaming that was much less accessible and much more for the elite of the game. You got a game to get good. You didn't get a game to play a game. You got a game to get good. And that was a really drastic change from what Nintendo had always been and what Nintendo was at the time with the GameCube and then moving on into the Wii. They always wanted it to be an accessible, everyone can play, everyone have a good time kind of experience. That is their philosophy on video games. Whoa, I accidentally turned on my phone's voice to speak. No, go back, stop. Bixby, I'm not talking to you. Does that work? No, stop. Hold on. Sorry, podcast. Um, Go away. That was very strange. I must have said something that sounded like my phone's command, my phone's like voice speak command. I got a new phone and it's still smarter than I am. Man, I totally got lost by Bixby there. Thanks, phone. It's pretty uncool of you. let me take another hit, and then I'll just jump back into this. I know I've rambled pretty hard here, so let me go a different direction, or let me take a hit and see where that sends me off. Cheers. Excuse me. Okay, so we changed direction here, where now the whole world wants these high level games, these pro level online multiplayer games in their AAA titles. Nintendo strays away from that and says we still want gaming to be something for everyone. The GameCube was never going to live up to what the PS2 had created, because the PS2 was a juggernaut of a system. If you haven't read the book Console Wars yet, and you are into video games at all, I would highly recommend that book. So the PS2 was like a juggernaut of a system. The Xbox was a glitchy nightmare, and the Xbox was a Halo machine, but it was also a glitchy nightmare. And the GameCube was neither. The GameCube was a toy. And it was a toy that had some really great games on it. Obviously, Super Smash Brothers, which is how we got to this conversation today, but it had some really prime games, but it was not what the world wanted at the time. So I think a lot of people feel like at that point, Nintendo lost their touch for making consoles. And I disagree with that heavily. I don't think Nintendo ever lost its ability to produce consoles. I think, in fact, it's quite the opposite. Nintendo continued to do what Nintendo wanted to do. Nintendo strayed away from the market path, and they created consoles that were Nintendo consoles. And then you look at like the Wii, which is one of the top selling video game machines of all time. And in reality, it didn't have that many amazing standout games. It had a lot of issues, but it really sold incredibly well because it was incredibly accessible. It was a toy, so to speak. That it was a console that everyone could put their hands on, everyone could understand, and everyone could play and play with. And the PS2 at that time was probably a little bit more accessible than the Xbox, but the 360 came out and the PS3 came out, and both of those were significantly harder to pick up than the Wii was. The Wii was, and you can love or hate motion controls, but it was natural in its usage. It was user friendly, and it was family friendly, and it sold a lot. Now, that was, I think, Nintendo's last chance to get money out of the old mentality of video games, where it was something fun and for everybody. It was the world was only going to change further, and go further in the direction of your hard and heavy AAA games. And that was around the time that the Nintendo put out the Wii U, which tanked. And I don't think it tanked because it was a bad console. I think it tanked because it wasn't what people wanted. It was clunky and has its issues, but I still love my Wii U. I use my Wii U pretty regularly, if we're being honest. Super Mario Maker is like one of my favorite games of all time, and that's a Wii U exclusive. So, anyway, the Wii U was Nintendo's ghost system, so to speak. It was the system that came out and people didn't know anything about it. It was the Dreamcast. It was the Virtual Boy. It was the system that was forgotten to time. And it's kind of a shame because I think it's a good system. But then the Switch happened. And suddenly Nintendo has learned all of these things from the flop of the Wii U, learned all of these things from the successes of the Wii, learned, well, not learned, but continued to observe the way that society wants its games, and they created something that finds like a perfect matrimony amongst all of those things. Is that to say that the Switch is the perfect console? No. But what I'm saying is that the Switch is the first console to put together a lot of the desires of the world and a lot of like video game things. And sorry, I just got a text and it distracted me. And I really don't. Okay, sorry. I'm watching someone's cat currently, and I wanted to make sure that that was not what that was about. Anyway, um, the Switch is the first console to check a lot of boxes, and the first console to make all of these things come together and work together and say, all right, let's give the people what they want. And I don't think that it's gotten quite the amount of attention yet that it's going to get, and I think that people are going to realize 20 years from now that the Switch really revolutionized gaming and really changed the direction that gaming is going to go. Whew. Man, it took me a while to get through that. So the thing about, gosh, now I can't see my clock. Sorry, I'm very easily distracted. I would say that must be the downside of the ogre, is it's got me a little ADHD, and as someone who is already ADHD, that is not particularly helpful. I'm not focused. Probably also because I want to go play more Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The Switch. The Switch has put together the ability to play games that are family friendly, play games that are independent, play games that are AAA, play games that are high level and high gore. And gore is just sort of the scapegoat for me to say, like, more mainstream style, I don't know, harder hitting, heavier, more realistic, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it gore because I think it's an easy metric to measure in a lot of those games versus classic Nintendo titles. It's put together all of these things, and it's this opportunity to play all these games. It's also the opportunity to play using well-crafted and well-designed user interfaces, like the HD Rumble features, the motion control of the Joy-Con, the AR reader, like, I'm sorry, not the AR reader, oh man, it's how TV remotes work. Why can I not remember this? Gosh darn, that's embarrassing. Um, the sensor, the infrared sensor, at the end of the Joy-Con, like the Nintendo Switch has put together all of those things with the ability to interact with a gaming console in a new way. A console that is not, motion controls are always clunky, but is clean and well defined and not an afterthought, and a rumble feature that is not just a little bit, it's a lot. It's very specific. If you don't know about the Switch's rumble feature, they advertise that you can hold a Switch controller, what's called a Joy-Con, in your hand and tilt it around as if it were a wooden box with marbles in it, and you can tell how many marbles are in the box and feel them roll around the box. And I have the game that works with, and it's very true, and it is unbelievable. Like, the amount of thought that was put into simply the interface of the controller is unbelievable. It's not a machine built like, let's effectively min-max all the specs that we can and make the meanest console that we can put out there that'll play the biggest, heaviest games. It's how can we make gaming the most enjoyable experience that it can be? And it is unbelievable how well they did with it. And you combine that with all of these games that are on it, all these different types of games, and you combine that with the ability to pick all of that up, put it in your backpack, and take it wherever you want. Like everything, everything. You can play Skyrim on an airplane now. Like, this whole thing is so hyper portable that it fits in with today's society, and that is just amazing. Amazing. Like, to take a full console and turn it portable is such a triumph, and something that I think is really going to change the expectation of the everyday gamer. This ability to take things and take things with you and practice on the go, and play whenever you have the chance, and not need to set up a whole thing. Like, you just have to HDMI this thing to your TV and you're good to go, or you take it off the stand and move on. It's easy. Oh man, I just can't. I'm too high to like really articulate how smooth it is, but trust me, it is so freaking portable. It is unbelievable. Like, I can take it to work with me and sit on my lunch break and play a full console game. It's wild. It's insane. I'm gonna smoke this again because I need to. Hold on a second. Cheers, friends. So then let's talk about the other huge triumph of the Switch, which is the games. Specifically, Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which were the first two like major Nintendo property games that got put out for it. And those games are, again, revolutionary in some very basic ways. It's Nintendo being good at what Nintendo has always been good at, and that is pushing the boundary of how good and how polished a game can be. And to start with the easy one, Super Mario Odyssey, like, the platforming in that game is absolutely A1. There is not a better platformer out there right now than Super Mario Odyssey. There isn't. I'm telling you, like, it is pixel perfect. It is endless. Like, it is open world, and it is just the absolute top tier of platforming. As someone who really loves platforming games, like, it is the best. Now, that's not to say that either of these games, Breath of the Wild or Odyssey, are without their flaws. There are plenty of flaws in both games, but this is pushing what the best can be further. Nothing is perfect. Like, if it's perfect, we can't improve anymore. Everything can be improved upon. Everything has to have flaws. Things that are perfect are stagnant. So Odyssey has this amazingly beautiful storyline, these amazingly beautiful graphics, and it's just plain fun. Like, it is just a good time. As is Breath of the Wild, and to talk about both of those games, they both proved that a game can be just fun and still be, like, cartoony and family friendly and accessible and a game. It's this sort of new mentality that to be fun, it has to be hard, and it has to be a challenge, and it has to be, like, super duper like, involved and high meta and all of these things, when in reality you can make just a fun game. Something that, in a sense, is like a good board game or like a good sport. Like, it's just fun to do. And Nintendo is turning video games back into a hobby that anyone can have and can do at any time. And I think that gaming has become so elite, in a sense, that we have taken the everyman's ability away to call themselves a gamer, because you shouldn't have to dedicate 4 hours of your day every day to a game to be able to call yourself a gamer and to enjoy playing that game, but you look at something like Fortnite or I don't know, World of Warcraft is probably another good example, but I've never played it, so I can't really talk about it. You look at something like Fortnite where to even be competitive, and I think to really even enjoy the experience, you have to be a pretty high level player. I say as someone who is not very good at Fortnite. I'm decent at PUBG, but I'm not good at Fortnite. You have to pour a lot of hours into playing that game to even enjoy the experience. And Nintendo is making sure that gaming isn't like that anymore. It's making sure that gaming is still for everybody. And they're doing it with games like Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, which are just fun, which anyone can play, and you can take them anywhere and play them anytime. So anytime you have free time, you can pass time with your video game, but you don't have to dedicate 4 hours at the end of your day to playing that game every single day. And that's just revolutionary in the mentality of gaming. And it's an absolute triumph. So that's Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. Super Mario Odyssey, I think, is what we have right now is the best platformer ever. And then Breath of the Wild, I think, has, in a sense, I think I say in a sense a lot. I think that's a pretty common filler phrase for me. Anyway, Breath of the Wild has, I think, created its own genre, created a new genre of games in a way, because it is the most sandboxy game that follows such a distinct storyline I think we may have ever seen. And I know that's saying a lot because there are a lot of open world games out there, but Breath of the Wild is so do it however you want and so scripted at the same time. It's amazing. I mean, the game design, someone who knows a lot about game design can talk a lot more about Breath of the Wild than I can. But what I can talk about is like PR and marketing and human condition. And what I can tell you is that Breath of the Wild is such an enjoyable experience that is what people are going to want to demand from games. That's what people are going to start to demand from games. If you haven't played Breath of the Wild, you are missing out on a piece of gaming history, I promise. And I say that the same way that I could say anybody who plays video games right now knows about the original Legend of Zelda. Anybody who plays video games now knows about the original Mario Brothers. The same way that people in the 90s were saying, well, you know about Pong, you know about adventure, like these super pivotal games. Throughout history, I think we're looking at two of those huge pivotal games. I mean, these are Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey are the new Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Brothers. And obviously they're the new ones, but they are the new standard of that genre of games, of the platformer, of the adventure game. And I think people are going to start to demand that from other games. Your first-person shooters, your online, your MMO, all of that's still going to exist. But as far as your huge AAA titles, they're going to start to look a lot more like Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. And that's amazing. And I truly think it's Nintendo putting their legacy on the table, so to speak, and saying, like, we are still top tier video game producers. We still know what people want, and we still dominate this market in a time when they were being written off. And I read so many articles that went something along the lines of, is it time for Nintendo to give up on the console game? And my answer was always no, because my answer was always Nintendo is the console game. Nintendo creates industry standard and pushes industry standard, and that had gone away for a long time, and I think it's back, and that's really cool for me as someone who is a gigantic Nintendo nerd. Okay, I'm gonna smoke this weed and I'm gonna wrap this up. Cheers, friends. So, thanks for listening to me talk about video games for almost an hour. It's super appreciated. I've been wanting to get a lot of that out for a long time. If that was fun for you, thanks. If you're still here, that's awesome. Super, super cool. If you listen through this whole episode and you're like, it wasn't for me, that's okay too. I totally understand. But thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that I really enjoy for a while. And thanks for giving me an audience to do so. It was very, very cool of you. That's about going to wrap it up for this episode. I'll be back next Thursday with a new smokings of the weeds and a new thing for you to hang out with. And like I said, I'm hoping to get some major life changes here in the next couple weeks to months. And as all of that comes to fruition, I will pass that information along, and I'm hopeful that this podcast will be able to go in a whole new direction for the new year. But we got to get there first, and as soon as we're there, I'm certain you'll know about it. But for now, I'm going to bounce. Thanks again for hanging out. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next week. Have an awesome week, an awesome day, have an awesome whenever it is you're listening to this. And cheers. My name is GLDLX. This has been Sesh Cast. Thank you so much for listening.